There's been some great talks already today on all the skills that you need in order to break into the jobs market, in order to get the job, to do the fantastic interview. What do you do when you need to progress your career? We're going to talk about how we can progress within an organization, the importance of networking. Let me get used to this now. Does anybody know who this man is? Warren Buffett. What does Warren Buffett do? He's an investor. He's one of the most successful, if not the most successful investor in the world. Multi-billionaire, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. One of the best investments he ever made, and these are his words, was in a public speaking course that he did with Dale Carnegie, and he wanted to learn how to communicate. And he says that if you want to increase your value, both personally and professionally, you must learn how to communicate. If you can't communicate, it's like winking at someone in the dark and nothing happens. That is so true. What we need to be able to do in order to get the jobs that we want, move on in our careers, to be able to communicate. And if you can't communicate, you're not going to move forward in the career that you have or that you want. So, my name is John Byrne. I'm founder of Your Success Coach. As was said, I have a severe and strong interest in communication skills and how you can develop your career by increasing your communication skills. The biggest audience that I saw in this room today was on interview skills, and that proves the point on communication skills and how important they are. We're going to talk about how we can improve our communication skills in order to build our network, in order to develop our career. My background is in the technology sector, in sales and business development. I'm also an entrepreneur, and I own and run my own business. And I employ people as well. And interview skills, communication skills are so important. Jack Canfield is the author of a book called The Success Principles. And he's a mentor of mine, so much so that I went and got trained as a Success Principles trainer in order to help people get from where they are to where they want to get to. And that's what careers are about. That's what getting a job is about. That is what moving forward in your career is about. So what are we going to talk about in the next 20, 25 minutes? What is networking? We're going to look at career responsibility. And I want you to take away maybe some tools and skills that you can use from here on in with your career, with the jobs that you have, with the development that you can do within an organization that you work with. Because I believe that the bedrock of all communication, of all career success, all personal success, is communication skills. So my question to you is, what is networking? I'd be interested in hearing the words that come to mind when you think of networking, be it on a career level or be it on a business level. I'm sure there are some entrepreneurs here as well that want to develop businesses. What words come to mind? Give me one or two, anyone at all. Relationships, yeah, positive word. Friends? Customers, excellent. Building, colleagues, connection. I was out for dinner last night, and I told friends of mine that didn't know I do speaking. I said, I'm going to speak about networking. And they went, oh, I hate networking. Hate it. I said, oh, great. I said, why? Because this is the question that I asked. What words come to mind? And they went, schmoozing. And I went, yeah. But all the words here today are positive. I love to hear the positive words about networking. There's a lot of negative connotations that come to networking. Words like superficial. They think, oh, that networking piece, I don't like going in. It's very superficial. It's very false. Overwhelming. Think of walking into a room like this where you know nobody and having to introduce yourself. So I'm going to challenge you now. Everybody sitting down takes a seat. Everybody sitting down stands up, please. What I'd like you to do, just very quickly, is turn to a person that you don't know, shake their hand, and just introduce yourself. Now, you don't have to introduce yourself to everybody. Pardon? Sure. Okay, thank you. You can all sit down. Some people find that overwhelming. Now, I didn't do that to really scare you or anything like that, but you have just networked. You've introduced yourself to someone. You've given your name to someone. You have just networked. Networking can be overwhelming. It can be seen as insincere as well, but we must move away from the negative connotations that networking has, because it can benefit your career so much. It can be supportive. Your network is supportive to your career. Collaborative. Imagine if all of these people were in your network, or your network within the organization that you work in, and you go, I need to get some help with something. I'm going to reach out to my network and say, I need some help, because your network will help you develop through your career. And finally, it's educational. You will learn. Having conversations with companies, with people. Here at this event today, you're going to learn something new. Here's my take on it. The ability to build authentic relationships was one of the words that came up, and a willingness to help others achieve their goals. It's a willingness to help others. A friend of mine last night used the word schmoozing, the falseness of it. It can be seen like that, but if you want to develop authentic relationships with work colleagues, with business colleagues, with friends, with other businesses, you will find that they will help you. As long as you want to help them achieve their goals. Your network is your net worth. It's a book written by Porter Gale. It's a good book. It's very true. Think of your network. Think of helping your network. Google did a study throughout their employees. It's called the Oxygen Project, I think it was. And they asked their employees, they said, what makes a good manager? What is it that makes a good manager? And it came out with 8 particular traits that the employees came back with after asking them a number of questions. We hear about these particular traits. We hear 1 or 2 of them. I'm going to show you the 8 of them that come back. These are the 8 that came back from Google. I'll give you a minute to read them. I love the first one, obviously, because is a good coach. That's what you want. You want a good coach within an organization, someone that's going to help you develop and be able to go to them and say, what do I need to do? A good coach is number 1. Number 8 is key technical skills. The technical skills that you have in order to do your job are not as important as a manager. They're not as important to have as a manager. Your staff are looking at you not for technical skills. They're looking at you to be a good coach, to empower them, is productive, and to be a good communicator. To be a good communicator, more so than being able to say, how do I fix this? How do I do this? Because the hard skills that you get from university, your degrees, your masters, they're not the skills that really apply to moving up the ladder within your career. It's soft skills, communication skills, what are sometimes referred to now as power skills. The hard skills that you get come from university. They'll help you get on the ladder. We've lots of graduates here today talking to organizations, and they're looking for positions. They're looking to start on the career ladder. And that's what they're doing. They're studying, they're getting their masters, their degrees, all of that good stuff. It'll get you on the ladder. But it's the soft skills, the power skills, the communication skills, the networking skills that will get you up the ladder of your career. Hard skills will get you on the ladder. Soft skills will get you up the career ladder. Again, another book, Empowering Yourself, Harvey J. Coleman, The P.I.E. Theory of Career Progression. Now, this is about career progression, P.I.E. It's broke into 10%, 30%, 60%. 10% of your career progression is based on your performance, how well you do your job. 10% of your career progression. So if you want to move up the ladder, It's based on how well you do your job, your performance. 30% is based on your image, how you look, how you come across. Do you have executive presence? Are you able to speak in public? Do you come across as confident? Do you come across with ideas? 30% of your career progression. Based on this particular study, and I think very few people have come back with anything else and said that is absolute rubbish. And 60% is on your exposure within an organization or within an industry, even for entrepreneurs that are developing businesses within industry. 60% of your career progression is based on your exposure. So if you look at two of those, 60 and 30 is 90, if my maths is right, is based on image and exposure, not your technical knowledge, not how much you know, but how you communicate and how you are seen by other people in your organization. You get paid on performance. Absolutely, you get paid on performance. Did you achieve the goals that your role is set out to have? But you get promoted on what other people think of you. And that's where communication is so important. It's so important that there's decisions going to be made about your career. As I mentioned earlier, Jack Canfield wrote a book called The Success Principles, and his number one success principle is to take 100% responsibility for your life. That's okay. There's plenty of coaches here talking about life coaching and career coaching. All you have to do is replace that word life with career. You take 100% responsibility for your career. Who is responsible? Who is responsible for your career progression? Yourself. So sometimes, only sometimes, we get an answer going, my manager is responsible for my career progression. The organization is responsible for my career progression. And part of it is true. It is a mix. But you must take 100% responsibility for your career progression to be seen, yes, to be performing, but also to be seen, your exposure within the organization as a confident, competent individual that wants to help other people and help their network progress in their careers as well. Because decisions about your future are made by people in a room that you are not in. You will do the interview, you will leave the room, and the decision about that role will be made by the people in that room. You're not in that room anymore. So how do we get into that room? That's the question. How do we get into that room? How do we get our voice heard in that room? And it's networking. Networking for the right reasons, doing the right thing for the right people, so that your voice is then heard in that room when the decision has been made. So let's talk about John. I've got good things to say about John, not just because he's on my team, because I've heard from other people as well throughout the organization. And making that a decision that you can do in order to develop your own career. Let's look at the skills that make a good networker. They're curious. Good networkers are curious. They're curious about other people. They're curious about how they can help. How can I help you? It's not about me. That's where the schmoozing, my friend said, oh, it's schmoozing. It's about what can I get out of this relationship? That's not what networking is about. Networking is about how I can help you. Truly, authentically help you without looking for anything in return. And if you are seen like that within your organization, it helps. It just helps. And being curious about other people. Asking questions. We're going to talk about that in a minute or two. Anyone heard of Simon Sinek? Yeah, he wrote the book. Start with Why. I always get the first. I know it's Why. Start with Why. Simon Sinek wrote the book Start With Why. But also, he talks about leadership a lot. Leaders speak last. That's what he says. Leaders speak last. And they speak last because they listen more. They will come into a meeting like this and they will listen to the other leaders. They will listen to the employees. And the leader will speak last. They listen twice as much as they speak. If you learn to listen more by asking questions, your network will grow. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, another excellent book, well worth a read. It's a big book. Some great tips. Habit number 5 is begin with the end in mind. That's what great networkers do. They begin with the end in mind. That's what great entrepreneurs do. That's what great employees do. That's what great team leaders do. They begin with the end in mind. They know the direction they're going, and they know where they want to get to. That's what great job seekers do. They know that they want to work for a particular organization. They know what they need to do in order to get into that organization. That's what great networkers do. So what can you do to improve your networking skills? And I'd love for people to be able to take a couple of these tips or tools with them today. Did I go forward too much? What can you do? Have a plan. Very simply, have a plan. Know where you want to go to. So you come to an event like this. You look at the organizations that are hiring. There are some here that your qualifications you're not looking to speak to. Know the ones that you do. Have a plan. Make sure that you speak to the people on the stands of the companies that you do want to speak to. So just have a plan. Same for your career. Have a plan. Have a plan of the people that you need to know. But also, when you start in an organization, have a plan of the people that you need to speak to, that you would like to be part of their network and see how you can help them when you start. Habit number 2 of the 7 habits of highly effective people: seek first to understand, then to be understood. You're seeking first to understand the organization, the person you're speaking to, your manager, your team, before you're trying to be understood. It means that you are listening more because you're seeking to understand them and what they are trying to do, as opposed to, well, let me tell you about what I'm trying to do. What I want to do is I want to come in here, I want to meet 10 companies, and I want this, and I want to do that, and I want it. That's not what networking is about. You will get the opportunity with your network to tell them what you are trying to achieve, because the managers, the good managers out there, want to coach you. And they want to say, well, what can I do to help you within the organization? So seek first to understand, then to be understood, and become genuinely curious. Become that person that is, and I use the word genuine because people are interesting. They have backstories that are interesting. They have careers that are interesting. Become genuinely curious about those careers, those people that you're working with, those teams that you're working with. And how do we do that? What's the best way to find out more about your team members, your managers, the organizations? Ask questions. Engaging. Ask questions. Ask more questions. Ask more questions than you speak. Leaders speak last because they listen more. They have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much. There's open questions we hear about all the time. Open questions and closed questions. Open questions begin with who, what, where, when, why, and how. They're open questions because they're the kind of questions that elicit information. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to be grilling your audience, constantly asking questions. But how do you do that? You just show that you're listening, first of all, but become genuinely curious. I'm interested in that point that you made about how you began in this organization. Can you tell me a little bit more? You're opening the conversation. Ask more questions, listen more. You will become the most interesting person in the room, and you'll find that you don't really have to speak that much. One question that I love to ask people, because it's very simple, very straightforward, and it just elicits more information. It's just very simply, how do you mean? It's not challenging. It's just, oh, how do you mean? And they go, oh, well. And they go back in and they think about what they've just said to you and they rephrase it even. How do you mean? Get people to elaborate even more on what they're talking about. And it allows you then just to get deeper in conversation. We talked about listening. Listen twice as much as you speak. But the big thing I would encourage everybody to do about their networking skills, their communication skills, their sales skills, is make the decision that you're going to improve them. You may recognize at the moment, say, yeah, do you know what, it is something I want to improve, but I find it might just be a little bit, I see it as a bit schmoozy. That word just stuck with me last night, or a bit negative. But your teams want you to engage with them. Make the decision that you're going to improve at it. Now, a lot of people think about things like that and they go, there's just so much to it. Just take a piece of it. Take one piece of the skills of listening more, of speaking less, of asking more questions. When you leave here today, maybe just speak for a second less than you did before and ask one more question than you normally would. Find something interesting or curious within your audience that they've said to you and pick up on it a little more and say, I heard that. How do you mean? Tell me more. Get them talking. You'll find they'll walk away and go, it was great talking to him, her, whoever. Make the decision to make the change first. It's the first thing you do. Commit to it. And what I say about that is Chris Voss wrote a book called, it's about negotiation. Never Split the Difference, he wrote it. And using different phrases. There's one phrase that I used to love, I still use it, is I appreciate that. I never thought that I'd use the phrase, oh, I really appreciate that. Never thought I'd be able to use that phrase because I think it's a genuine phrase. I appreciate you saying that to me. Chris Voss in his book, when he talks about changing your negotiation skills or developing your negotiation skills, he talks about it takes 64 repetitions in order to make it a habit. But it's 64 repetitions, not in a row, but what we're saying is that if you're trying to change the way you listen or change the way you ask questions, and you want to ask more questions, on your next conversation, you don't go out and just ask a load of questions. Just ask one more question and practice it each time you go out. Because deciding to do it, committing to do it, you will succeed. Your network is your net worth. Being able to communicate with your network, being seen to be communicating, thinking about the P.I.E theory, it's not all about performance, it's about image, it's about how you come across, and it's about your exposure within the organization. They're from studies done. Warren Buffett said, invest in yourself. One way to increase your value, personally and professionally, is to learn how to communicate. And if you can't communicate, it's like winking at someone in the dark. Nothing happens. Take a couple of the tools from this talk out into the room and just practice them. You'll find that your career will develop. You will move up the ladder instead of staying just on it. My name is John Byrne, founder of Your Success Coach. And if you have any questions, please do ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Please give a warm round of applause to John. Thank you, John.